Hello, everybody. Let me turn this music down or off or whatever. It's kind of ringing in my ears. Um, Today may be very short. It may be very long. I don't know. But number one thing is if you are reading the books, if you're reading the Wheel of Time show and have started on the Eye of the World, there will be book spoilers all the way up to chapter 32, I believe. We'll confirm that with our. Let me see. We've got our guest here. Salty will be back. Let me just unmute him real quick and bring him in. And that's that's what we're going to talk about. He's been reading the book. Welcome, Chad. Welcome back.
What's up?
Not a whole lot. Just the whole reason we're doing this is you sent me a text message about something that happened in the book, and I just thought we'd take the opportunity to dive into that a little bit and kind of maybe work our way backwards if we can. But you said that you were on chapter 32, and what was it that happened right before that
Uh,
that upset you?
Saddest day in WOT history is the day Hopper dies, protecting
Okay.
protecting Perrin. Broke my heart. Almost put the book down and walked away. Was about to just wipe my hands clean of the story, move on with my life. Um, but yeah, no, that got me twisted. That got me feeling some type of way when I read that,
Mm.
and yeah, I felt like it was something that I needed to discuss, get off my chest. So I felt like what better to do than to come into my therapy session with you and yeah, talk about my lost one.
So, I guess let's kind of look at what's going on as it relates to the show because I believe in the show Hopper is alive for quite a long time. So I think
Yeah,
maybe what happened in the book is affecting you based on, like in the show. I don't think that happens until season two, maybe. Is that right?
yeah, yeah. Pretty much the end of season two.
Right.
Yeah, which I mean, he goes out in a similar fashion, but just like right off the rip, it is surprising to see that. So I see we got some settings you're pulling up on the screen.
Yeah, give it a second. I was pulling up my
I
little
got you.
avatars that I forgot to. Once it connects, it'll
Yeah.
go away.
So so in the show, he makes it to season two. Um, has a similar fate to that of the book.
Hmm.
Pretty much identical, other than just a couple small details. But I wasn't expecting that. So getting into this story, conversations, me and you have had many conversations as I've watched the show and tried to persuade you to join the dark side with me, which I'm glad I finally succeeded. You pointed out that Hopper as a character is his parents' homeboy. That's his buddy right there. And according to the show, I saw that that was pretty accurate up to the point in season two. And so going along in book one, Perrin and Egwene, they're captured by the White Cloaks hiding out in the woods. Uh, to the best of my knowledge, I didn't know if the wolves like were trying to distract the White Cloaks at that moment. I knew that there was kind of a battle going on between the wolves. I think they even said there was a few guys there, a few men on the wolves side against the White Cloaks, and basically told Perrin and Egwene to go hide up in the mountains. And they end up getting found up on a cliff or up on a rock by the White Cloaks. And as Perrin realizes that there's not another avenue to go. It's not like he can outrun the White Cloaks. They're on horseback, and he's not going to be able to fight a whole platoon of men to the death. with his axe. At this point in the story, Perrin is not really a fighter.
Right.
So he gives himself up, and as he's going up to the White Cloaks, I could be getting a couple details wrong, but Hopper just hops his way out of nowhere, goes airborne, and attacks a White Cloak up on a horse, and they get in a scuffle. And I guess telepathically, Hopper tells Perrin to run, which I don't think Perrin did. But yeah. Anyways, Hopper sacrifices himself so that Perrin has an opportunity to get away, and I was a little butthurt that Perrin didn't use that opportunity to get away. Um, to me, I feel like Hopper died for no real good reason, because Perrin ended up getting taken prisoner anyway. So for me, it rubbed me really wrong.
Right. Right. I'm trying to find the exact passage. So, so I've got the scene. I've got the scene where Hopper dies, and um, he there's there's like a part of the problem with the altercation is that like the wolves in general don't like men or two legs as they like to call them, right? And they
Mhm.
don't particularly care for. I don't think they're really like aware of the white cloaks, but the the white cloaks were like deliberately looking for Perrin, and um, so I think that kind of added to the confusion. And I think Hopper's just trying to save Perrin in his mind.
Yeah. No, no doubt. No doubt I took that away on Hopper's side. It just felt like it was an opportunity for Perrin to do something, and I don't exactly remember what Perrin was doing in that moment, but to me it just seemed to add up to a whole lot of nothing. And so to sacrifice a character like Hopper right there, really, for me, it felt like a waste of an opportunity. I would have liked there to be some kind of exchange there, like Perrin got something, but at the cost of Hopper, you know. And to me, I feel like we just lost Hopper, and he's still stuck in the camp, in the same situation. Whereas, what if Hopper had waited, you know, let him be taken captured, and then, got the wolves together to bust him out, like they did in the show.
I think part of that is you're starting to see. I mean, you've met Elias, right?
Yep.
Elias is
Yep.
very comfortable around the wolves, and um, I'm trying to remember the exact reason why they split up. I think in the book they're at like a camp,
Hmm.
and then they hear the white cloaks approaching, and basically the Elias and the wolves like scatter. They um,
Yeah.
and I really would have to read it again. I didn't really like take notes on this or anything, but I'm trying
Hmm.
to understand and remember the motivations behind what's going on. But essentially, the White Cloaks are extremely suspicious. I don't know if you've kind of like realized that reading the books, like the scene at Verilon, and I think this is the second time we see them. They're kind of dicks. I mean, they think everybody's a dark friend if they're not exactly where they expect them to be. And
Yeah.
a group of people at a camp away from the road is suspicious to them because, of course, it is.
Yeah. Which, I mean, that's exactly what happens. I remember in the book they were sitting at the fire, and Elias noticed, with his, wolf senses that something was about to happen. and told them snuff out the fire.
Right.
And Egwene wasn't really understanding what's going on here, and so I think he went up and he did it for her. And the book was talking about how he was like cursing as he was pulling the kettle off the fire because it was burning his hands,
Right.
trying to get everything snuffed out. And I think he told them to run and go hide. And because I remember later on, that's what Perrin kept thinking about was, Elias told me to hide. He didn't tell me to run. He said hide.
Right, and
So
that's the other part that I was looking for was like, what exactly did Elias say? Because a lot of what's happening in this chapter is Perrin is becoming um, is starting to experience the things that Elias has years and years of experience dealing with,
mhm,
and this scene is to me it's deliberately confusing. Like I feel like the author deliberately set this scene up to be confusing, um, to kind of demonstrate the chaos of that whole scenario. You're already separated from a group of people that you didn't really want to be a part of anyway. You've already survived one White Cloak attack in Barrowline. You made it to Shadar Logoth. You ran into the Tinkers. The Tinkers were kind of cool, um, but they don't typically go to cities. And now Elias is trying to get you, uh, I think to Whitebridge or Four Kings or something like that. And now these White Cloaks show up, and so parents having to deal with the wolves, and now what we've got is a just like a nice big pot of a bunch of stuff that's going on, and I think it's deliberately confusing.
yeah,
And it says so like Elias is basically um, says there are a lot of men coming on horses. They came up behind the wolves, but the men didn't see them. They're heading toward the pool. Probably they don't have anything to do with us. It's the only water for miles. But Dapple says they smell wrong. It's sort of the way a rabid dog smells wrong.
yeah,
And says we'll stay away from them. Find a place to wait for we'll find a place to wait. And then that's kind of what Perrin can kind of smell it. It's kind of contributing to what's going on. So right after Perrin dies, we get to meet
well, Perrin doesn't die. Hopper dies.
Hopper dies. My mistake. Um, so right after Hopper dies, they get captured by the White Cloaks.
Yeah,
What do you think
there's a
about?
lot to break down just in this whole chapter. For one,
Mhm.
I mean, I'm glad that you went back and read that because I was sitting here thinking, I was like, why are the White Cloaks hunting for Perrin? Which I get it that there's water in that area, but like, why do the White Cloaks keep butting their nose in this group's business? Like, it seems awfully suspicious how many interactions they're having this early on. It's almost as if there's a dark friend in the mix.
Hmm,
Um,
an interesting theory.
I'm just taking some shots out here. I find it really strange that there's not some kind of networking going on because these people keep popping up everywhere in all their cities. They're traveling in the same direction, it seems. Uh, and I'm sure there could be other reasons that explain what's going on. But just from the knowledge that I have and what I've seen and read, it seems pretty suspicious. Now I don't think Grandpappy is the Dark Friend. Uh, in fact, I wouldn't say admire, but I do like his character.
Are
He
you,
seems like a fair man.
are you
You know,
talking
like
about
he's got.
Bornhold?
I'm talking about Bornhold. They call him. I think Perrin keeps calling him like a grandfather like or something like that in the book.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, the he seems like a fair person, and I can respect that. He's in a position of power. He has rules to uphold. But he seems to be the one that is level-headed and observes the facts of a situation rather than trying to jump the gun and be like, you're either in the light or out of the light, and if you're out of the light, you're a dark friend and off with your head.
Right.
Especially in the scene that you're talking about where they're captured and they have that questioning done. And I believe it was done by the questioner in the presence of Bornhold. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, so I mean, just a minor distinction. Like none of these people in this group of white cloaks is a questioner.
Oh, okay.
There's
I
there's
it
no there's no
yeah.
questioner in this group.
Okay, because
Um,
I get it confused because the questioner is in the show with that group, and then he leaves the
right.
group. But I believe in the show he's actually the questioner is questioning them
Yes.
at this camp.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I just remember that there was a person asking questions, and the decisions made by Bornhold were somewhat questioned, or yeah, by
Right.
somebody in his group that forgot his place. Needs to be popped up a little bit.
Right. So the two paragraphs is kind of a good demonstration of this interaction between the Lord Captain Jeffrey Bornhold and Child Bayar. Child Bayar is an interesting character in general, and these couple paragraphs kind of demonstrate that. He says, "My Lord Captain, his voice was as hard as his posture and grating, but somehow flat, without expression. The gray-haired man made a casual gesture. Be at your ease, child Bayar. You have tallied our costs for this encounter." And then it's just kind of like a good little demonstration of this child Bayar is very he looks like he's wound up just from this one paragraph, and Bornhall does not. He just makes a casual hand gesture and like proceeds basically. I didn't know
But
if
he's
you got that feeling from reading that.
no, I did, and that's kind of what made me like his character in that this seems to be a comfortable place for Bornhold. In that he definitely feels in control of this situation, and I also feel like all the members of the group, for the most part, through the book thus far, have been able to lie their way into getting out of whatever trouble they get in, whether it's Tom Maryland or it's
Moraine,
Moraine, and here you have an example of Perrin and Egwene trying to do the same thing, which I mean, they're all at some point going to have to because they all have to keep it a secret what they're doing, their true mission.
right?
Um, but Bornhold is reading right through the bullshit, right through it. And I think he can sense that these kids aren't as bad as the person under his command thinks that they are. But he does know
Right.
that they're holding something back. You know, he does know that there is information yet to be discussed or brought out of him, and so he's quick to be like, we're not going to execute him and leave him, but I am going to keep you under my care until you tell me the truth.
Right. That was kind of my first impression. The very first time I read through it was Bornhall could see through whatever thin story they wove, and it's not necessarily that they saw through it, but like you said, that they were holding back something, and now that they were holding back, they piqued his curiosity, and that's something you don't want to do in a man like Bornhold who's got basically this army with him.
Yeah.
um,
What was surprising was then this might have been just the author gassing up the wolves, but just them talking about the casualties of that battle, of how many men they lost, how many were hurt, how many horses were hurt, how many wolves they got, and they were saying that there was a report of like some odd 50 wolves and a small group of men, like 7 to 10.
Yeah, I have this pulled up as well. It says it says 9 men dead and 23 injured, 7 seriously. All can ride though. 30 horses had to be put down. They were hamstrung. And then he goes on to say many of the remounts were scattered, but with wolves to send them on their way, it'll take days to gather them. And then I was trying to find where they were talking about how many they thought there were, because that was just the damage. That wasn't like where
Yeah.
they were speculating on the where is
Because I remember there was a comment shortly after that description of wolves or something, or the group that's with Perrin. They fight so fiercely that they're often overestimated of what they actually are. Or maybe it's even Bornhald says that about the wolves, that they can seem to be more than what they truly are, or something like that.
Oh, here it is. I found it. So he says, I would estimate the pack that attacked us at 50 beasts or more, my lord captain. And of that, we killed at least 20, perhaps 30. He's saying they killed 30 wolves. Um,
Yes.
um,
Off with his head.
yeah, basically. So I believe we disposed of 4 or 5, but it is unlikely we'll find any bodies, given the Dark Friends' propensity for carrying away their dead. And then Bornhall goes on to say, it is your considered estimate that we were attacked in a planned ambush by upwards of 50 wolves and better than half a score of Dark Friends. He goes on to say, I would say 6 or 8 wolves, Child Bayar, and perhaps no other humans than these two. Uh, basically, is like, yeah, right, bro. I don't believe you.
That is wild. I'm it's surprising to see how many wolves they lose right off the rip, because I knew that there was just a small number of them
There's only
from.
3 to my knowledge. I don't think they lost.
Yeah,
I don't think they lost any wolves other than
well,
Hopper.
well, that's what I'm saying. That's a 33% casualty rate right there.
Well, yeah, they were outnumbered.
Well, he said that they disposed of 4 bodies.
They
So I mean,
like maybe some of the wolves returned. That I
yeah.
mean that could
So
be true.
so I didn't know if there was a larger pact, and you just in the book get to meet some of the characters. Um, I didn't know exactly the full details. That's kind of one of the downsides of not watching something. You don't know everything in the background that's not putting a word on paper. Um, but yeah, definitely knew it wasn't 50. But that was interesting, man. It was interesting to see their conversation and how this is going to go. Obviously, I've seen the show, and I know how that takes it. Um, but I'm curious in the book what the next step is in that direction. But the whole thing that got us on this conversation today was Hopper.
Right.
And
Well, I mean,
I
just so you know, before you continue, I have made a list on this list making website that I have, and one of my lists is now called Chad Chad's Theories. And so
good.
on my very first card that we get a very hot take from you, Dark Friend among the White Cloaks.
Yep. Put it out there. I'm so excited to get to the end of this story and find out that I have like a 70% accuracy with this.
And I even put a note. I put a note which chapter has prompted you to make this theory. And
I'm calling it.
okay, there is a dark friend among these white cloaks.
Okay, hot take number 1.
Okay,
Hot take number 2, Hopper's coming back. Ain't no way. Ain't no way he's not coming back. So, and this one might be a little bit unfair just because I've been perceptive in our conversations and what I've seen in the show and what I've read in the book. To
right.
me, point 1 for myself, is Perrin's first not conversation, but first connection, in a sense, was to Hopper. So Hopper seems important to me in that I think it's the first time Perrin was reading the mind of an actual wolf rather than just getting a feeling or a sense of something. They
Right.
were more or less communicating with each other. I mean, Hopper straight up communicated with Perrin at one point, but then also the feeling that they had where Perrin was talking about how he could taste what Hopper was tasting, feel what happened to Hopper. And like, I guess Hopper got hit at one point. I don't remember if Perrin got hit as well, because I know Perrin was in the midst of his own struggle, but he
Parent
said at one
parent
point, like, he
feels
fell to the
like
ground.
yeah, parent feels
And
like he had a almost like a bond with Hopper. So when
yeah,
Hopper got stabbed, it threw Perrin off as well. Okay, so uh,
yeah.
so
So, anyways, the part in the book that I was pointing at is he said that he didn't know if Hopper had died or himself.
oh, okay, I see what you're saying.
So that point right there showed to me that they had a very strong bond that I don't feel like has been portrayed thus far of any other character or any other wolf to this point. Um, I know you've told me in the past, whenever I told you I was watching the show and that they had Hopper in there, you were like, "Oh snap, that's Perrin's boy."
Yeah,
So I was like, "Okay, something to come." Obviously, he didn't die at this point in season one, so I had no idea at that moment. And I watched him all the way through season two, where he got dropped. And I felt like, if that's Perrin's boy, why is he getting dropped in season two? There's got to be, a life, a life full of fantasies for them, adventures, good
man,
times and bad times. And
not
I
old.
don't.
So, you're saying that in no I don't know about you, but I have a very fond appreciation of the character Ned Stark in Game of Thrones, and we only see him for one season.
Very true.
I mean, that was a well-built character that dies in the grand
Immediately.
scheme of things immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
But
go ahead.
let's not get it twisted. Hopper is better than Ned Stark, dare I say. I
Okay,
hold him a tier above that.
okay.
Not really. Not really. I'm not gonna speak blasphemy on this.
But
Um,
better watch out. If anybody ever watches this, they'll be very upset with those words.
yeah, they would. I'd be upset if I watched it. Um, but no, I just felt it's really weird, and that's just me trying to piece everything together. So I knew, just hearing from you, that there is a buddy there's a friendship between Hopper and Perrin. And on the show, it was definitely shown, but not to the extent of how excited I remember you getting that Hopper was in the show. And you kind of you didn't tell me any details. You were like, they're boys, and that you were happy that they added that to the show. So
Yeah,
that, to me, showed that that's kind of an important part of the book, or that is an important relationship.
I mean,
Then to see him,
maybe I said I'm glad they added him to the show because of how little screen time they got.
I make assumptions to the max, and I just sling hot takes. That's what I
Okay,
do, baby.
okay. Uh,
Um,
all right.
and another point is that he made it to season two in the show, um, and here he is dying in season one. So for me, that just leads me to some assumption that there's going to be a future for Hopper in some capacity, or otherwise, why would he become? Why would Perrin have this relationship? Why would you have the reaction you did when I brought up that Hopper was in the show? To mean that he's just going to go out at the like middle of book one, and I just don't feel like a character like that would get the reaction out of you, and more or less that they would drag that character into season two in the show. So I'm not saying that it's 100% he's coming back. I'm just saying, with everything that I've seen, all the information I have, I'm making a guess here, and I feel
Okay.
like
You're
everybody
standing
seems to.
behind it.
I'm standing behind it. I feel like it's important. Hopper's an important character, and I feel like he's going to come back.
Okay. All right. Well, let me ask you. Let me ask you this question because in the, I think it's the chapter right before that. So this is, I believe this is after the traveling people. So after they meet the Tinkers, I believe Perrin and Elias and Egwene are running and they see like they get attacked. They get attacked by animals. I just wanted to see if you had any thoughts about that particular event, or
Um,
if maybe it's a little too fuzzy and we can just move forward and
so it is fuzzy in the details, but a uh, part that comes later in that chapter stands out to me in that incident when I believe it's Bornhald, or it could be the other man in the room. I don't remember his name. He's not important. He's a liar. Um, is that they believe that like creatures of the forest, and they believe wolves are friends of the Dark One.
right.
And so that leads me to think now with that detail, knowing that there's creatures other than Trollocs and Fades that work for the Dark One, makes me think that that was an act done by him. Um, with this whole Wheel of Time and balance thing, you know, the Dark One is pushing things in a certain direction, and I feel like things keep getting pushed where the White Cloaks keep running into this group, causing problems. These creatures out in the wild keep pushing them and causing problems. It just seems like there's got to be a manipulator behind this. Maybe not every incident, but certain incidents. And so I keep kind of track of what's going on, and I try to remember, would it make sense for this to be, a move made by the Dark One?
Now, do you think that it's the Dark One being the manipulator, or do you think it's,
Oh,
I mean, like what do you mean by the Dark One?
yeah. So from a conversation I've had with you and a realization in a previous conversation before we started doing these podcasts, I don't know if I should reveal that detail thus yet.
Okay, that's fine. Um,
But
so I'm gonna
I
I'm
think
gonna
I
put
know
that
who it
down on our
is.
theories as a bigger manipulator in the overall environment, I'll say.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm pretty sure that it's been mentioned already, but I think all the way back in like one of the first chapters, but the because they get attacked by ravens here, and I think it's land that says scavengers.
You know,
Scavengers are the main
Mike,
culprits.
not to cut you off, but I re- something kind of clicked for me right here,
Okay.
and I did not pick this up the first time going through. I picked this up in the show, not in the book.
Okay.
So episode 3, when Ran and Matt are in that town up in the mountain,
Uh-huh.
and they're at kind of a standoff with the lady at the end. She has Rand's sword,
Right.
and they're kind of asking her why are you doing this? Like, why would you give us over to the Dark One? And she says the last time someone did that, we still remember his name, Ishmael.
Mm.
And if you pay attention to that, Ishmael is not the Dark One. Ishmael's the one who brought the dragon to the Dark One. I
Okay.
didn't pick that up the first time
Okay.
because the show definitely makes you perceive Ishmael as the Dark One.
All right. I'm gonna put that in there too. We're just gonna put his name for now, because they don't mention him in the books at this point. Ishamael's not is not
Ishmael.
yeah, Ishamael's not brought up by name yet. He is brought up, and that's a good catch for episode 3. Um, I've already done episode 3. I don't know if I
We
mentioned.
have.
I don't think I've talked about Ishamael though. Partly because of the way they're doing it in the show, but
Hmm.
when I do episode 4, if they mention it again, there's a then I'll probably bring it up then. But there's a lot of kind of talked about it with the scene with the wolves, but there's a lot of confusion overall. Like finding the truth of the story is part of the story, I guess, if that makes sense. Like who's telling the truth and who's lying is a big part of this series because a lot of people are lying.
Good to know.
um, and some of it's deliberate, but some of it's they heard a rumor, and
Yeah.
you hear a rumor and repeat it with conviction, and now you got a problem.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh,
so I'm unless you wanted to talk about the wolves some more, I kind of wanted to see what you remember from 31, which, if you remember anything, this is Rand,
Out
and
walking.
I think yeah, I think they're walking on the Camelin Road. I think that's what they're
Yes.
doing.
Basically, sleeping under trees,
Mhm.
hitching rides with farmers, s- stealing stealing stuff from farmers and getting chased by dogs, getting pinned up in trees.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking at. Just skimming. This is such an interesting like group of scenes for me because here Matt's starting to act real weird.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I've kind of noticed that before this chapter, but it definitely stands out. I feel like by the time you get through this chapter, you pretty much are getting slapped in the face that there is something going on with Matt. He's got issues going on, and I mean, obviously, me and you know what's going on, but
Right,
in the book, you don't know that yet.
right.
Um, so yeah, from my perspective, I'm definitely picking up on that reading.
Okay.
Is
I
there a deeper meaning in this chapter you were trying to get at?
No, it's more just to point out that Matt's not something's going on. I was trying to find something specific for Rand because I think
Well,
where's
they had a conversation
Tom
where
at?
Matt told Rand to sell a sword,
Yeah, I was just reading that.
and Rand was like, "Hell no." Well, I think Rand had kind of told Matt, he's like, "Hey, dog, you could sell that ruby, and we could literally get there to where we're going to the White Tower in a cart, stay at every inn with a meal and a bed, you
Right.
know." And Matt's like, "Why don't you sell your sword? Don't talk about my dagger."
Yeah.
And they were kind of going back and forth, and you can see that Matt is really attached to that dagger. He is not coming off that. And Rand makes certain comments throughout that chapter where he's like, does Matt forget that he has a bow? Is Matt forgetting he has anything other than that dagger? It's like the corruption of the ring,
Yeah, it
you know.
feels that
And
way. That's a pretty good description, is that it feels like the One Ring from the Lord of the Rings.
yeah, you could
Um,
see you could see that Tolkien heavily influenced
oh yeah,
the.
oh yeah. I was trying to find the scene. I'm trying to find a scene here, and where's I just looked at 31 where Rand and Matt are kind of on the road. Where's Tom at?
Yeah. Uh, Man, that's a good question. I have no idea.
You don't remember?
No.
Oh man.
No, like I said, I'm paying attention to the show in these conversations because I'm viewing this story from a viewer's perspective versus you from a book reader, and I haven't been taking notes as I've been going through the book. Uh, so I have lost track of Tom.
Right. Okay. Well,
Which,
what happens is they're at Whitebridge and a Murdraw shows up.
oh yeah, doesn't yes. So doesn't Tom like run at the Murdraw to like
Yeah.
let Matt and Rand get away?
Yeah. It says he shrugged the bundled Gleeman's cloak off his back and thrust it into Rand's arms. Take care of that. When I say run, you run, and don't stop until you get to Camelin. The Queen's blessing and in. Remember that in case. Just remember it. And he says, "Now run," and then he basically charges a Murdraw.
Yeah. The Tom's got a set on him. That
You think
just
so? He's,
the
I
dude's a
mean, yeah,
dude's a stud.
yeah,
Dude's a stud.
it's
Yeah,
impressive.
I enjoy Tom.
It's impressive. Yeah, I didn't remember that happened all the way back in Whitebridge, but it makes sense because they're trying to get from Whitebridge to Camelin, and it's pretty far. It's pretty
Yeah.
far. I don't know if you can see my map, but zoomed in a little bit. So this is like Whitebridge is all the way over here, and they've got to make it to Four Kings and then to Camelin is the direction they're going.
Yeah. Well, at least they're, the bulk of their journey's is
Yeah,
out of the way. That was interesting. Yeah, I forgot about that, man. I feel like so much has happened in the book,
right.
bouncing from chapter to chapter, character group to character group since that Murdraw attack. It man, this book is packed with
It's dense.
events happening.
It's dense.
That is dense.
And you don't really, I think so. So my personal opinion about why the book is so dense and why I don't know if you noticed, but they spent a lot of time talking about like what kind of tree is nearby, and it can get kind of, honestly, it can get kind of exhausting. Like how many times are you going to mention what kind of leaves are on the trees? And my personal opinion, and part of why I like to read and listen to the series so much, is that it's to me, if every sentence is meaningful, if every sentence and every word in a chapter has deep meaning, then none of it does. So I feel like the author, in part, is trying to balance those like deep, meaningful things that are happening with just, sometimes people are just walking. I know you don't want to necessarily see that in a book. You want all the all the action and all the excitement and all the secrets and things like that. But sometimes you're just walking and looking around. It's not constant action every second.
Yeah. And that's what a lot of this chapter felt like, the one where Matt and Rand are just kind of walking. They're just hitching rides, sleeping under bushes and trees. It's cold. It sucks. It's not fun. And there's nothing exciting going on. Um, until kind of the end of the chapter, since I'm ahead in the story on the book, I kind of have an idea of where that's going. Seems like
Okay.
it's going to play out a little differently in the book.
Well, did you finish 32, the Four Kings in Shadow, or did you finish
No,
31 and you started 42?
no, I finished 31 and I have not started 32.
Because
I ended right there.
the last sentence of 32 of 31 is, but then they came to Four Kings. I mean, that's kind of ominous, I think.
Yes.
Ram began to think their problems were over till they reached Camelin, but then they came to Four Kings. So what? I mean, let's give me a hot take. What do you think's happening in Four Kings?
Oh, man, that's unfair. It's unfair because I've seen the show. Um,
What do
and
you mean you've seen the show? Do they
so
even go to Four Kings in the show?
okay, hold on. I'm mixing things up here.
Yeah, because Breen
So
Spring is in the show.
Breen Springs,
Yeah,
and, and I just don't remember Breen Spring going down the way it did in the show.
because they're not there yet. Look at my map. Four Kings is where they're up in
Oh,
chapter
Breen Spring.
32.
Okay.
Brain
Okay.
Spring
So
is
what do I?
in between.
Oh man, what do I think is gonna happen? Right now, I don't have a good guess because if it's not gonna happen until Breen Spring, then you know, man,
Right.
s
I mean,
something juicy is about to go down. I
I
would
mean,
I would
yeah.
think that they're gonna come into some kind of confrontation with somebody.
Okay.
Um,
It's a
man,
softball
I
confrontation.
don't know who it could be though, because with what I know about what happens in Breen Spring and how it catches them off guard, I don't think it would be a fade.
Okay. So what do you based on what you saw in the show is Brain Spring, but I mean let's just say it. Is this what you think they pulled that scene out of the book from? Do you think that scene originated from this chapter 32?
That's what my assumption was going to be. Yes,
Okay.
is that they go to the Four Kings and uh, they're working their way. They show up. They don't have money, obviously. You kind of see how their journey's going this far, and they try to work for a hot meal. And much like the show, which happens in episode 3, which we've already covered, so no spoilers.
Right.
Um, they go to the inn, and then the innkeeper turns on them, and alerts the Fade, and wants to be the next Ishmael.
Okay.
And that's what my assumption would happen there. But if that happened in Brain Spring, then
Well,
I don't really.
I mean, to be fair, Breen Spring in the show is up here in this little mountain by the river.
Yeah,
So
they're much further north.
they moved a town north and and skipped like
A whole lot.
they skipped White Bridge, they skipped Ariam, they skipped Four Kings, Market Sheeran, and then called it Breen
Ooh,
Spring.
okay.
You know what I mean?
Maybe I got an idea.
Okay.
I think Matt's gonna kill people.
All right. That's a hot take. Let's that is anything you tell me that anything you tell me where people are dying is always going to be a hot take for me because I think that's interesting. Okay, so Matt's going to kill people. That is coming up, isn't it? And
Yeah, and that's why I bring
mm,
that up
okay,
because I remember from season 1. I haven't rewatched it yet, but I remember dreams happening, and I mean I think you see it from Rand's perspective, if I'm not mistaken. It's a bit foggy. It's been a few years.
right,
Um, but I do remember Matt pretty much massacring a family.
okay, all right,
Uh, so I do feel like, and just with the way that this, chapter is kind of going, I feel like really the only substance to this chapter is the conflict between Matt and Rand, and mainly the conflict with Matt and himself in this dagger.
right,
Because like we talked, what's going on with them right now at the story is not interesting. There's not a whole lot of juicy stuff going on. There's no battle, there's no prisoners being taken. It's just them, you know, hoofing it, and life sucking for the most part, except the person you're hoofing it with is just being a dick, you know.
yeah. There's
But
there's a
but
lot of
not
tension between them.
yeah. But he's got a little extra spice to him than he usually does. And so I feel like that's getting to him, and I feel like Matt might be getting pushed to his breaking point. And I know that we've seen some dreams with Perrin. We've seen some dreams with Rand. To
Hmm.
this point, I don't really think it's been focused on Matt's dream yet.
Up,
And I feel like this might be a good opportunity for the Dark One to let's just take a step inside Matt's head.
Okay. Well, up to this point, up to the end of chapter 31, we do not have a Matt like point of view or any kind of official dream or anything. I mean, just to
Yeah,
confirm your memory, basically.
thank you.
We've not had that. We've not had that yet.
So this feels like a good time for that to happen,
Right.
because I do know that it does come eventually.
Well, why do you say that?
Because I want to say, watching the show in season one, when Matt massacred, like they stay. I think in the show they're staying at some farm. They're staying in somebody's farm. I think it's a lot like where chapter 31 is.
Uh-huh.
Um, and they're like sleeping out in a barn or maybe like out in the living room of somebody's house.
Yeah, that's what
And
happens
when
in
they,
the show, right?
yeah, and when they wake up, when Rand wakes up, everybody's dead.
Okay.
Um, and so that just makes me think that, something's gonna happen with Matt coming
Okay.
here pretty soon. And you're saying that chapter 32 seems pretty ominous, especially you pointed out the last sentence.
Seems that way.
That's that's where I'm gonna go.
I have a hard time. I'm gonna have a hard time with trying to get my tone right for content that could be spoilery because once you've read the chapter, I am more free to talk about, all the ins and outs of what actually happened. But when we're talking
Yeah.
about chapters you haven't gotten into, it is a little bit different. Like
Yeah.
I read that last line and, I'm starting to remember what happened and it's a pretty good line.
It is. But for me, you've pointed that out. You've also pointed out that chapter 32 is a good chapter, especially coming off of how boring 31 was. I'm just piecing some things together.
Okay.
Just like some juicy's got to be coming up.
All right. Well, I'm most interested for you to continue so that we can get to chapter 35. So once you get to and into chapter 35 and maybe finish that one, I would like to revisit. Um, obviously I won't
Yeah.
say why, but I do want to, obviously we want to cover 32, but I want to get all the way up to the end of chapter 35 so that we can have like a nice chunk of material to cover. And I
Yeah,
think I
it's
think it'll be interesting.
it's hard for me to throw all the questions I want to out there because I'm trying to come from the perspective of just reading this through the first time. But
Right.
because I've watched the show, because me and you have had so many conversations, and before we ever had a thought about doing a conversation online or a podcast, we discussed a lot of topics, and there was certain things, questions that I was okay with you spoiling for me,
Right.
and some things I didn't want spoiled. So I have a mix of knowledge that I probably shouldn't right now, and it makes me question things. I'm glad I do because I can kind of pull back the veil of the story a little bit.
Right.
Um, but it just makes me curious why some things are happening the way they're happening. And for me, these dreams, that it's a really fascinating thing, especially just watching season two and what they do with dreams in season two, and you could see what they work with. It I mean, do you want to open that can of worms, or do you want me to just go with the pace of the book?
I mean, if you got some hot takes about things going on in dreams, I can certainly jot those down. I think that everything that you just said is great, and I think when you finish chapter 35 and we hop back on this, you're gonna say, "Welp, let's just start talking." That's what I think your reaction's gonna be.
Yeah. All right, that's fair enough.
Did you have a hot
And
take about dreams?
I just no, that I just didn't want to spoil anything, but I think for the sake of our conversation, I'm just going to go ahead and do it.
Well, I
I
think
know that.
the premise is that you watch the show up to the end of season two,
Yes,
and now you're reading the book for the first time.
correct.
And I think that's I think that you will not be alone in that group. Like if you made a Venn diagram, you wouldn't be the only one. So
Hmm.
I think I think if we talk about anything in the show, it's fine. I'm personally trying not to uh, say anything that happens directly in the book and is not reflected in the show in any way, if that makes sense.
Okay. No, that does. So for me, I'm curious if they travel in dreams. Like we've seen Rand travel to Egwene in a dream with what's his side piece? Oh, blanking on her name.
Are you talking
One of the
about
Forsaken.
in the show?
Forsaken. Yeah, in the show.
That would be Lanfear
Lanfear.
or
So we see
Celine.
Lanfear take Rand to Egwene. They travel in a dream. And Rand somewhat figures out that she's in a cell. He can see where she's at. How has the Dark One, who's visiting all these boys in these dreams, not just seen where they're at and been like, Fates, go get them?
A great question.
That puzzles me. Because it's funny when Rand does it, he like in a short amount of time figures out where Egwene is and he goes and saves her. That was like his whole mission. But yet the Dark One's whole mission is to get these boys, and he keeps visiting them in their dreams over and over and over.
Well,
And he
what is
knows where his fates are fighting them. There's got to be some form of communication going on. So why is he not? Why are they not working better in a logistical sense? If I was the Dark One, I would have this shit wrapped up in a week. Probably not because the will would push me out. I
and
mean,
what would
it would
well
balance me out.
what would your goal be with the boys, assuming you found them?
Well, I mean, it really hasn't been understood just yet what the Dark One wants with the boys. I mean, I think he wants to turn them. Either way, it's to capture them in some
Okay,
capacity. I don't know if it's kill or just capture,
right,
um, but capturing them is step one.
right. You
You know
can't kill them if you don't have your
exactly.
hand on them. Okay,
So yeah, it just doesn't make sense why he wouldn't be using his abilities if he's this almighty powerful thing to not see where they're at in his dream and communicate that to his forces. And his forces are obviously making contact with them, with the group. And so between dreams and the contact they're having in life, in real life, you merge the two and you're gonna find a pattern of where they're going.
okay. I had a follow-up question because I'm a little fuzzy on season two.
Hmm.
Um, but who do they give the Dark One a name in the show?
No, no, you don't even know the Dark One. Yeah, that's something I figured out at the end of season 2 in a conversation with you.
Oh, spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoiler alert. You know, I mean, like we said, people have probably seen this show up till now. If you haven't, turn it off right now. And yeah, whenever they kill Ishmael at the end of season 2, I
Right,
remember just having a conversation with you. I was like, that's it. That's the evil guy. I was like, what are they gonna do now? And then we talked about all the Forsaken, which I'm excited to get in those conversations later down the line. But we
yeah,
basically, between the hints that you were trying to keep from me and you were just trying to be neutral and listen to be my soundboard for me,
right.
um, I basically,
You're
figured
able to
out
figure out that this
Ishmael is not the Dark One.
yeah
It,
yeah he
let's get it right. Is it Ishmael?
it's Shamael. There's an A in there.
Ishmael. Okay.
Yeah,
I
Ish,
trigger you every time I
Ishamael.
say that. I could see your face.
That damn camera.
Yeah.
You see me win.
Ishmael.
Yeah.
Ishmael. Yeah. Okay. We got it.
I prefer the
But
name Baalzamon. I don't know if they say that in the show. I'm pretty sure they do. I'm pretty sure I've
the,
heard it several times.
hmm yeah, but for me it's hard because I haven't read this book 14 times. So like for me hearing that, I'm hearing two different people's names. I'm not thinking it's the same person. It sounds like they're talking about the same thing,
Right.
but I haven't pieced that together.
So you were talking
Um,
about dreams. I
yes.
mean, just so we were kind of talking about. So you've seen the show all the way to the end of season two, and now you're reading the books. And the dreams is one of the things that you're looking forward to, like seeing in the book form, or
Yeah. Yeah, I want to see
okay,
how the book explores that and
okay,
you know, the rules in the book. Basically what are the capabilities of the dreams? Um I feel like the show, I mean, let me put this thought together. I don't know everything that the dreams can do. In that I don't know people's full capabilities while they're in dreams and what you can do in that realm. I feel like the show's done a good job of explaining on their end what you can do, but I don't feel like that's the full capabilities of what dreams are in this world.
okay,
So I'm excited to see what really happens in the book and in more detail, um, what's capable.
okay. Well, I, I mean, I can't say anything about that. They do explore it, but I don't want to. I don't
Yeah,
want to dig in it. There is an answer for all of the questions that you just had. So that's good. That's good, right? I
yeah,
mean,
that is
that
good.
means you that
Yeah,
means you're not going to be left hanging.
no,
You see a mechanic in the show. That would be the worst if it was never explained anywhere else other than the show. So,
yeah.
like what if they made up the Heron Mark blade just for the show, and then you go to read the book and you're like, where the hell is my Heron Mark blade at? Like,
You know what? At this point, uh, Heron fighters, Heron marked swordsmen, they ain't shit.
not in the show.
I hold them in little to no regard. Between the book and the show, they gas these guys up, and I've seen nothing to back that up.
You got to
Every
understand that this is a realistic world, and not everybody is Goku from Dragon Ball Z, right?
well, don't gas them up like they're Goku then.
Well, I mean, if you're in a sword fight,
Hmm.
if you're in a sword fight one on one,
Correct.
it would be nice to know that the person holding the other blade is better than you and worse than you at a glance.
That is very fair.
So,
It's
I
very
mean,
fair.
it's not necessarily like this guy's going to change the shape of a battle. It's more of like I would be really careful about screwing with this dude. Like I see what you're saying. You're like, well, this is a blade master. Well, what can a blade master actually do? Is he going to kill 50 Trollocs by himself? Maybe if they
Mm.
came at him one on one in a battle, but like in a all out fight, 50 versus one is not a very interesting. That guy's going to die. He's
Was there
outnumbered.
50 at Rand's house?
No, there was like 6 to 12. There were at least six.
And a small close encounter, like small CQB type stuff.
Yeah,
I would, from my impression, just it's just my opinion. That's all it is.
sure,
So it doesn't mean shit.
sure.
Um, from the way that they've gassed up the Blade Masters,
Uh-huh.
I would have expected Tam to handle that better. Also, the only other Heron Blade Master I've seen was season 2 when Rand killed him and all of his homies immediately.
With magic.
With magic, yes, with magic. But the fact is that they showed me a sword master getting killed immediately. So to me, the two examples I've had did not put up much of a fight in either of their situations. I
Fair.
get it, you know. Tam's an old rusty farmer who has not touched his sword in many years.
Yeah, at least 20.
Um, at least 20, and the other guy got killed by the dragon. But just the examples they've given me that I can go on, it just doesn't feel like they're living up to the hype that they build.
It's fair.
And that sucks because I want to see that. I want to see characters like that. To me, I feel like that's how they build Lan. That's how they show his character. He's just out there whooping everybody's ass.
Yeah, and
You know,
he does not have a heron mark blade.
that's what I'm saying. So
Take
with
take
the
take for it what you will. I mean, maybe they're just building it up. You know, the two,
so
like you said, the two scenes you've seen with a Blade Master is basically in episode one, right?
mhm.
Episode one of season one. Cam is surprised and old or older and hasn't touched a blade in a long time and struggles with one Trolloc. And the only other time you've seen one is at the end of season two, and he gets blasted by magic. So, I mean, you haven't really, like you said, you haven't had an opportunity to see what an actual blade master can do.
and that's what I'm excited for. And I want to see that, but to this point right now, I mean,
Not
quit
impressed.
talking about it. I'm not impressed. Quit talking about it. Show me. Don't talk about it. Be about it.
Show don't tell is a great phrase used a lot in writing, and I approve. Show me, don't tell
So, question:
me. Okay.
would between Lan and a Heron Blade Master, who you put your money on?
Between Lan and what, like Tam?
Not Tam. I'm just gonna say a Heron Blade Master. I would assume they all have to meet some kind of uh, credibility with a blade.
Do they not talk about how to get the Heron Mark blade in the show?
They might have glossed over it, but I mean it's been
Okay.
some time since I've seen season two. You know.
Okay. Okay. Uh, I'll have to look at the show before I can answer like how to get it. But if I were to put like you're talking about like Homeboy at the end of episode two of season two,
Yeah,
like would
him
I
one
put?
on one with Lan.
Oh, Lan would kill him.
Lan would kill him.
Oh yeah,
Okay. Uh,
I have 100% faith in Lan Mandragoran.
Okay. Is Lan a Targaryen?
I mean, I think
Oh, oh,
I talked about this a couple of days ago that you could consider almost everybody on the planet at this point a Taviran of some sort. How strongly Taviran? I don't think Lan is particularly strong Taviran wise.
see, that just makes me think a lot like the point that you made earlier. If you try to make every sentence important, then none of them are. So if
Right.
everybody's a Targaryen, then it doesn't really make a difference if you are or not in the story.
I mean, it's a matter of strength, strengthen your connection to the pattern. I mean, maybe when I say not strongly Taviran, maybe I mean like you if you hadn't lost your boot that morning, you would have got run over by a horse. But because you couldn't find your boots, you went outside and the horse didn't run you over because you went outside later than usual. I mean, that's the this Taviran like twisting of chance could be something as
Hmm.
simple as that. But I mean, when you start really seeing what a Taviran can do, you'll kind of understand why I say like it's a question of magnitude, not necessarily who is or who isn't. It's a question of scale and magnitude.
Oh,
So maybe somebody is Taviran and they need somebody, and then you go back in the story or in the episode, and that person is on their way, and things line up, and
Egwene.
the two characters meet up when they need to.
Mm,
I
mm,
mean,
mm,
yeah,
mm.
Egwene could be considered one. I think the show is trying to kind of lean into the fact that Nynaeve and Egwene, Aaron, Matt, and Rand are all Taviran to one extent or the other.
Yes.
Um, and I think
But
the
just
the book kind of hints at Egwene and Nynaeve, but doesn't really. it's not as direct, not as
I was
direct as
just
the
thinking
other
back to
three.
the show
Yeah,
when Egwene was where she was and really wishing that Rand would come. Like, I mean, she obviously wanted help,
yeah,
you know, and I don't think it really mattered who it came from, but she wanted Rand,
okay,
and Rand was on his way.
yeah. I mean, that's exactly the kind of thing that I'm talking about. The only exception to that, I would say, is that it's not usually a conscious thing, if that makes sense. Like, it's not like, oh, I really need $100, and then you look down and you find $100.
Yeah,
It's more like
it'd be nice.
for you to succeed in this goal, the pattern finds a way.
Yes.
The wheel finds a way. You're not like consciously, you're not like, well, I really wish 50 troops would go that way without having to talk to them.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's not what I meant. I just meant like she was hopeless in despair.
right. She
And
was hopeless and in despair and at her very last shred of like being able to resist,
yes,
and the pattern was not having that, basically.
no.
Yeah, I can buy into that. I like that.
Is there anything else in, let's say, the first 30 chapters that you would like to see where my thoughts are on, or if I've got a hot take?
Um,
Because, buddy, I'm locked and loaded. I'm ready to let these things fly.
about the first 30 chapters, you're ready to let
Well,
fly?
just anything, anything that you think.
I mean, what do you think about Moraine not being hurt?
Not being hurt. That seems more of like a question between what do I think the difference is between the book and the show
Well, I mean,
versus the story.
how do you think that affected the story? Because right now Moraine is let's see, where's her last chapter? Her last chapter currently is I just had it. I just had it open. That's really annoying. Um, should be chapter 28.
Chapter.
So you would have just read it. Um, it is a very, very short chapter.
Yes. Remember it
Um,
not like being like 20 minutes long.
right, like Nynaeve is there, Lan and Moraine are there, and
Which what I remember from that chapter more than anything was what was going on between Nynaeve and Lan, and him struggling with the idea that she could track him.
yeah, he is salty about that in both the book and the show, which I find highly entertaining.
Wasn't that when they were kind of talking about? She was kind of trying to talk with Nynaeve about her having the abilities of a Aes Sedai, and that she could basically be that. But Nynaeve was really wanting to hold on to the idea that she's a wisdom and not so much touched by
That's
the one power.
that's before this chapter,
Okay, okay,
right after they leave Shatter Logoth. They or right before it's I think it's right after Arid Hole or Shatter Logoth, whatever you want to call it. I think at this point in this chapter in 28, she's still being stubborn about it, but she's not like arguing about it. Right now, she's focused
yeah,
on finding the boys, and I believe they're in Whitebridge right now. Uh,
okay, yeah. Then this chapter is pretty fuzzy. I feel bad about that.
hmm, well,
Um, yeah, I'm not really remembering a whole lot of this.
well, that's kind of why I wanted to talk about like the chapters that you had like the most fresh. I didn't want to go all the way back to chapter one and kind of work our way through, but I did want to point out one of the main differences between the storyline of the show and the storyline of the book and how you felt about it. Like I know one is not going to be better than the other, but it is going to affect the way things are done like story wise, right? I mean, for one thing, Moraine can kind of figure out where the boys are because of that coin she gave them.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think's going to happen there? Or has that not been like a big thing you've been paying attention to?
Really hasn't been a big thing that I've focused
That's
on.
fair.
I know you've brought it up, but for me, whether she's injured, not injured, um, and the more I could see it in like the grand scheme of the story, I don't really see how that's a big impact. But I do see how like in the show now she's like going to find her sister so that somebody could heal her. Now she's getting caught up with oh man, I always forget her name, the red Asadai with the strong bones.
Leandrin.
That's Leandrin, dog. I've never seen somebody in my life with a better chin game than her.
Oh yeah.
That is, yeah, that should be in the Hall of Fame. But yeah, I don't think that that's where this story's going. It could. I haven't really got past, I haven't seen past this chapter right here in their story. Um, but to me, it just doesn't seem to be a big deal. Like, yeah, it affected some things when they were leaving Shadar Logoth, but overall, I'm not really tore up about it. You know, I
Okay.
don't I don't have the same frustration.
All right. Well, I mean that being said, that's part of that's part of this the whole purpose of this discussion is
Yeah,
I personally don't feel that you are far enough in the book to start making the distinctions of why a lot of book readers are, if not upset, then disappointed or just are not interested in the show. They're salty about it. Um,
yeah,
they don't want to watch it. It's upsetting to them, and you're not there yet. You're almost there, and once you get there, I'm most curious to see um, a what you thought about it, like what your reaction to it was, and b where do you think the story goes from there? Because at some point, the show and the book are not going to be one for one, and we're already there, right? Like things are,
yeah,
there's a scene
definitely.
where, there's lots of things going on that are not portrayed in the show or in the book, like one for one. So that's kind of what I'm looking forward to is getting into those discussions. And I'm glad you're enjoying the book. I know some of these chapters are going to be dry and boring. My recommendation is to just push through it because it does get they do they do have some good peaks, um, and I think the boring parts are worth the drudge, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. And I definitely have not read enough to have a book reader's perspective on this. I want to read it because I enjoy this story
I mean,
and I want to see how the author meant for this story to be depicted.
you're over
But at the
halfway
same
through.
time,
Did
do
you know
what?
that? You're over halfway through. Did you know that?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Just
Okay.
just the first book I'm over halfway through.
Yeah,
Um but for me, I don't think I'm ever going to lose appreciation for the show in that
of course not.
I'd never read the book and I watched this show, and while it's not the same as the book, I did enjoy this show and it did bring me to the book.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't think I will ever be too tore up about how different it gets. Um, I mean, I'm not saying that I won't agree with you on things. I might, you know, find the book to be more interesting in something, but so far what I've seen, the show has been a good TV show to watch. Not saying it's better than the book. It has been enjoyable for me as a non-book reader. Um, we'll mark that. We'll mark that and we'll see where I'm at whenever I finish. Maybe I'll eat crow.
No, no, I don't think so. I was about to tell you a story. So a long time ago, I was in East Texas at a mall. I was at a mall for a book release, which is a lot of old things that age me directly. So I was at a mall at a book release for Harry Potter, and I believe it was the last book in the Harry Potter series had not been written when the show started. And so when the movies were being released, I was at this book release picking up the book, and I was talking to a couple that was dressed, uh, you know, they had everything. They looked like wizards, cool. And I was talking to them, and I said, I said, how do you like the books? And they said, this is what they told me. They said they said we watched the first movie, found out that the books were incomplete, found out that they were going to continue the movies all the way to the end, and we are not going to touch the books until the show is done. And I said, well, why do you want to do that? And he said, because they never match, and I don't want to get ahead in the story in the book and then be disappointed by the show or the movie in this case. And I thought that was solid. It makes sense.
Yeah, and I I share their sentiment. I feel like I've talked to you about that in the past too, that I like digesting stories first as a show or a movie, and then going back to read the book because you have an idea of the world and the landscape, and the book just adds so much more to it rather than taking away. I feel like when
Right.
you read first and then you go watch, you're watching a light version, a dumbed down version in a way of what you got to experience when you were reading.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
and I
that's
think that's
almost everything.
it's unfortunately not it's not fair to the show writers or the movie producers because a writer has an unlimited budget. He can spend his whole life writing one book, and he can
Yeah.
make that book as long and as detailed as he wants. And then you got people like Brandon Sanderson who put out a book, you know, sometimes he puts out one book a year, sometimes he puts out um, two books a year if they're a little shorter. And then sometimes during COVID, he writes four books on accident on top of the massive one he was writing. So not,
Yes.
that's an extreme advantage as a writer because they can release whenever they want. They're not under any pressure to if we lose momentum, we're going to lose funding and have to fire 500 people and shut the studio down.
And
So
just how much time they allow you on screen. Like with movies, I know they fight to keep it under 2.5 hours. And
yeah,
Lord of the Rings pushed that to the max
yeah,
because of the story and how much they wanted to add. But they still had hours upon hours of film that they had to cut because they had to dumb it down so that it could fit in theaters and people could sit through it.
yeah. Let's
For me
see.
personally, I would watch 30 hours. If they had put together all the film that they had done for the show, I'd sit there and watch every bit and love it. But for some reason, producers and people in charge think that people will not sit down and enjoy that much content. I think now with TV shows, it's more about money and how much it costs to put all that together versus putting it in theaters and trying to make it 2.5 hours so somebody could sit there, you know, in one
Yeah,
sitting. But it's just so hard to capture everything, and that's why I like doing it that way. I like to go watch it first, enjoy it for what it is, and then dig deeper when I get to the book.
yeah. I mean, my you're talking about you mentioned the Lord of the Rings, and while you were talking, I was looking this up. Um, if you want to watch the movies, the theatrical release, the theatrical release of the Lord of the Rings is like you said, it's pushing it to the max of what a typical audience member is willing to sit through without something like an intermission or something like that because you don't want to miss the movie, right? The director's cuts of those are absolutely ridiculous. I mean, it goes from I think like 6 hours for all three or something like that to like 12 hours or 16 hours. It's some ridiculous.
Love to
It's
see it.
I love the director's cut, and I would love to
Yeah.
see some. I think before we talk next time, I'm going to try to dig into that a little more and try to find the stats of like who bought the director's cut of the Lord of the Rings. This is all before like streaming or whatever, but the director's cut is there absolutely is a market for it, and that is part of, if not my, I'm trying to appreciate the show for what it is. Um, but I think that, so what was the director's cut of Lord of the Rings? It was they put things in from the books. They put them back in because they had to cut them for the theatrical release. Is that right? I think that's how
Yes.
that works.
Yes.
So I think I think that the book reader of The Wheel of Time going into the show, I think part of their saltiness about all this is even if there was like a director's release of this show, the storyline is different. If they're adding in more things, they're just fleshing out stuff for the show and not the book. It's not like they condensed the book down and said, this is the show. We didn't really change anything, but we couldn't really like make this scene work because of budget, and we couldn't really explore this facet of the story for whatever reason. But this is the book in show form, and we kept it as true as possible. And then if there's a big enough demand, we'll release like a director's cut of it, and that would be like super great. They can't do that in this case, so we just have to, that's part of what I'm doing these other streams for, is to try to encourage book readers to enjoy the show for what it is. But that's,
Yes.
you know, and that's what I want them to do, is enjoy it for what it is. But they can never do something like like a director's cut for the show and get any kind of response for it, if that makes sense. It's a different situation.
Yeah. No, it gets really difficult really fast.
Yeah.
And it's
Uh,
unfortunate. That's why Peter Jackson should be celebrated the way he is. Because he, to my knowledge, is the only person that's done the closest thing to a one for one, other than the amount of time he had uh, in a story.
yeah.
Because you look what they're doing with Lord of the Rings right now with the TV show,
Bombing.
and it's Wheel of Time's better.
Yeah.
Wheel of Time is a better show, and they're both produced by Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
And they paid $500 million. I think they paid $250 million just for the rights to the show, for
Oh,
that
yeah.
to not even be their top show.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I could talk about that show too. That show irritates me. I think I
Me
watched
too.
the first episode and then dipped, and I don't even think I pushed on after that.
I'm really hoping that they make some strong changes in season 2, and I think they're going to have to. They've invested way too much money to chalk it up and be a loss.
They could just give that budget to the Wheel of Time, in my opinion.
I I would be happy with that, and then them just address that show in 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
Do
Well, I'm.
do Wheel of Time, and then put all your money into the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. Well, I think this was a good session. I think
Yep.
for us to talk about the book some more, I feel that we need to get you to the end of chapter 35,
Okay.
and then have a conversation, and then after that, if you get past 35 and make it all the way to 41, then that would be like a 3 hour long stream, I think, if we were to do something like that.
Good. Good. Well, I will be more prepared in the future.
Yeah.
We were not prepared to do a conversation over the book.
No, but you wanted
Uh,
to talk about Hopper, and
I
we had
needed
to
to.
we had to get out of your
God,
system.
I needed that. I did.
Book
I had to get that
therapy,
off my chest.
book therapy. It's important.
Yes.
Well, I know you. This is one of those things, like we both wanted to do this, but and just put our conversations out there. But sometimes I'm at work, and I can't just be like, oh, let me turn Twitch on and record it.
Yes.
So, but I like this. I think this is good, and hopefully you can take some notes. It's kind of difficult if you're doing just the Audible, um, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna read from 32 to 41 uh, in the next couple of days and take notes. That way, when we get to those points and talk about it, I'll have some stuff to ask you.
Good. Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, just kind of not, you know, nudge your memory a little bit.
Yeah, that would be perfect because I get a bit lost in the sauce sometimes.
Oh yeah.
If you can set the scene for me, I'm pretty good at remembering what was going on. But when you're calling out chapter numbers, I'm not gonna go right off the
Well,
top of my head. But
I'm cheating when when I talk about those because I've got the book open. I'm
and
looking.
you've read it 14 times.
Yeah, yeah. Did I send you my my stats for Amazon?
No, no, you
Oh my
didn't.
God. Oh my God. Let me pull
You're
up
an animal,
the
and you need
email.
to be stopped.
They can't stop me. Let me
Can't
pull
stop,
up,
won't stop.
let me pull up my email from Audible. So Audible sent me Audible basically they sent me this here's your stats. They said that I listened to Audible. I gotta get a calculator. Hold on. They gave it to me in minutes. The animals. Let's see here. A little calculator on screen. So they said that I listened to 67,600 minutes of Audible. 60,
Disgusting.
60 minutes in an hour. So over 1,100 hours. And there's 24 hours in a day. I listened to basically a month and a half of Audible last year.
Imagine if you put all that time into Call of Duty.
Uh, it's in stream now.
No, no, but remember, we have a Baldur's Gate 3 character that I'm gonna need your help making because I've not played D&D a day in my life.
The
And
building the character is all. Come on, man, put those first person shooter skills to work. Just
yeah, let me do that as I'm
yeah,
raining from above,
yeah,
clicking places for them to walk to. Yeah,
exactly, exactly.
I need your
Get good,
guiding hand
get
to
good,
build the
dude.
OP character. Good. Okay.
Get good. Just try,
Yeah,
just put more hours in. That's all.
that's it. Yeah, just need to put a month and a half of my time into the Baldur's Gate.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah, I
man.
can do that. Give me just a minute, and
Yeah, yeah, we're
I'll do
Gucci.
that. Cool.
Wrap this thing up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's already wrapped up. I already changed the slide and everything. That means it's done, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, are we gonna stay on Discord, or are you gonna call me back, or what?
It whatever works for you. We probably just hop out of Discord because we're still on the stream.
Well, I muted it.